Welcome to Joydala Fashion Guide. Today's video we're going to be making an 8-piece skirt with this African print, and we're going to be making it the boot cut method. That is, we are going to create allowance for the bum. So the back pattern is going to be bigger than the front pattern, just like we do in a trouser, whereby the back pattern is bigger than the front pattern. So the amount of fabric I'm going to be using for this is 2.5 yards of fabric. So it depends on how full you want your skirt to be. So you can use between 2.5 yards to 3 yards, or even 3.5 if you have the fabric. Now, to know how to fold the fabric, the 2.5 yards will divide it by 8, because it's going to be an 8-piece skirt. Then each panel will be around 12 inches. So you can use between 12 and 13 inches. So the one I'm going to be cutting, I'm going to cut the middle 12 inches and I'm going to cut the side 13 inches. So the measurement I'm working with, I'm going to explain that to you now on the board. So let's go to the board. So the hip that I'm working with a hip of 40. I'm working with a hip of 40. So I'm going to divide 40 by 8. And that means each panel will be 5 inches. And then the 40, we'll divide it by 2 to have the front pattern and the back pattern. So when you divide by 2, you're going to have 20. Now, we want the back to be bigger than the front because of the bum. So this 20, I'll subtract 2 from it for the front pattern, and then we're going to have 18 as the wideness of the front. Okay, as the width of the front, and then we'll add 2 inches to the back, which will make it 22 inches. Now for this skirt, I'm going to be using an elastic and a zip. So we are going to use the hip measurement for the waist measurement. Now, how am I going to fold this fabric? So assuming this is the front skirt and this is the back skirt, I'm just going to quickly explain some things for you right now. So this represents the front panel and this represents the back panel. So pay close attention. For the front piece, because I'm working with a hip of 40, we should divide that into 2. You have 20 for the front and 20 for the back. But because the back, we want to create an allowance for the boots, we are going to subtract 2 inches for this front panel and add 2 inches to the back panel. So if we subtract 2 inches from this 20, we are going to have 18 inches. That means from here to here will be 18 inches. The wideness like this will be 18 inches. And then this back, we are going to add 2 inches. So we are going to have 22 inches. So it means that the wideness that we have here will be 22 inches. And then this is the hip area, this is the hip area. For this skirt, I'm going to be using an elastic and a waistband. So because of that, I'm going to use the same measurement for the hip also for the waist. So take note of that. So I won't be making use of my waist measurement, I'll make use of the hip measurement. And then from our calculation, we said we divide 40 by 8 to know how wide, to know the allocation of each panel. That means each panel will be 5 inches. If you divide 40 by 8, 5 inches. But the kind of 8-piece I want to make, I want the middle to be narrow down the sides, okay, especially for the front. The front pattern, it will be narrower than the back pattern. And then, so to achieve that, you could use your bust span measurement. So that you use your bust span measurement from here to here. Okay, so to get the front, that means you divide your bust span measurement by 2. So for mine, as in my bust span measurement is 7 inches, and when you divide that will be 3.5 inches. So it means that this place will be 3.5, and here will also be 3.5. Now remember that the wideness of the front is 18 inches. So if you add these two together, we are going to have 7 inches. Okay, we have 7 inches, and when you subtract 7 from 18, you are going to have 11 inches. So 11 inches is for these two sides. So divide 11 inches by 2. So here will be 5.5. Here will also be 5.5. Okay, but for the back, because of the allowance you are giving, we will not be making use of 3.5. Instead, we are going to make use of 4.5. So for the back, middle of the back, we are going to use 4.5, 4.5. So by the time you add 4.5 plus 4.5, you're going to have 9 inches. So you subtract 9 inches from 22. 22 minus 9. We're going to have 13. So it means that this 13 is for both sides. So you simply divide this 13 by 2, and you're going to have 6.5. So here is going to be 6.5, and here is going to be 6.5. So having known how you're going to share the middle and the side, the next thing to know is the allowance that we are going to add. So if you take a look at this, I've split out the panels. Remember, we have 4 panels, 1, 2, 3, 4. So assuming these are the 4 panels. Now, how do we calculate the allowance? That is what we want to do now. So for the side, we need a side allowance. So for the side allowance, you can use between 1 inch or 1.5 inches or 1.5. They need the same thing, 1.5 or 1.5 inches for the side. And then this first panel, to join this to this, to join this side to this side, you need 1/2 inch for here. Then this number 2, to join it to here, you need 1/2 inch. This number 2, you also need 1/2 inch to also join it to number 3. So for number 1, if you are making use of 1 inch, 1 plus 1/2, it means that you are going to be needing 1.5 inches seam allowance. And then for the second panel, if you are using 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here, it means that you are going to add 1 to that. It means that you are going to be adding 1. Okay, so it depends on what you are using. So you'll be adding 1 to that. Then this third panel, you need 1/2 inch to join it to the second panel. We also need 1/2 inch to join it to this fourth panel. So we need 1 inch for that. Okay, and then for this side is just like this first side. We need 1/2 inch to join to the third one, and then we need the side seam allowance. The side seam allowance can be 1 inch or 1.5 inches. If you intend to tone the skirt with a lining, then use 1.5. So at the end of the day, the inches that we need for this front piece, we need 1.5. Then you need 1 inch for this middle. You need 1 inch for the middle, 1 for the both middle 1 inch, 1 inch, the side 1.5, 1.5. So let's add the allowances that we need to what we initially marked out and see what the front panel should be. So to this 5.5, I'm going to add 1.5. So at the end of the day, this will be 6, 7. This will be 7 inches, and then this we are adding 1. This will be 4.5. This will be 4.5, and then this will be 7 inches. Okay. So let's come to the back. For the back panel, so let's use this to also explain the back. For the back panel, we also need a side allowance. Okay, so we'll maintain this 1.5. But for the middle piece, we need to create a zipper allowance. So we are going to make this allowance bigger. So instead of using half, we are going to be using 1 inch. Okay, so instead of using half, we'll make use of 1 inch. Then this one will also make use of 1 inch. So at the end of the day, the allowance for this second piece will be 1.5. This will also be 1.5, and this last one is also 1.5. So it will be 1.5, 1.5 all through. Now, this is the initial one without the seam. Now we are going to add seam allowance to this. So we are going to be adding 1.5 seam allowance to each of them. So what I'm explaining now is for you to know how you're going to fold your fabric and cut. So by the time this first one, by the time we add, that is this center, this is the side back. By the time we add the allowance, we're going to have 6, 7, we're going to have 8 inches for the side. And then for the center, 5, we're going to have 6 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches. Okay. So to now fold the fabric, let me use here to explain. To cut the center front, remember the center front, the wideness of our fabric is 12 inches. So we are going to put that on fold. So it will be something like this. We are going to go to the table, but I just want to use this to explain so that when you are cutting on the table, you know why we are cutting. So this is on fold, and it is 6 inches wide on fold. So that when you open it up, you fold your fabric 6 inches. So that when you open it up, it becomes 12 inches. And then you get your waist, you get the hip line. You also measure the knee line. Okay, now having gotten the waist, the hip, and then the knee line, we need 4.5 on fold. 4.5 on fold, that will be 2.25. 2.25. So you can go ahead and mark 2.25 here, and also mark 2.25 here. In order not to have any shortages, you can decide to round that up to 2.5. So we are using the same for the waist and the hip because we are going to make use of elastic. Because we are making use of elastic and a zipper. So we'll measure our 2.5 here. So remember, when you measure the 2.25 or 2.5, assuming you are using 2.25, by the time you open it up, that is going to be 4.5. Okay, and then for the knee area, to know what to measure on the knee, depending on how curvy you want the knee to be, you can decide to subtract 0.75 from the hip measurement, or 0.5, or even 1 inch. So assuming for us 2.5, I want to remove 0.75. That is going to give us 1/3. And remember that is on fold, so that by the time we open it up, we are going to have 3.5. So I'm going to then now go ahead and mark 1/3 here, and then from here you just take it straight to the hem. So this is for the center front. Now for the center back, sorry, for the side front, okay, first of all, for this center front, after you have cut this first one, you use that to cut the second one. Then for this side front, instead of this 2.5, we'll now make use of 3.5, because this is 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So you can place your front pattern on the next one you're going to fold for the side, and simply just add 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch on fold. When you open it, that is 1 inch. So after this, you've got this front panel, you can just simply add 1/2 inch to that. You just add 1/2 inch to the waist, 1/2 inch to the hip, 1/2 inch to the knee, and that will give you the side front. And then for the back pattern, for the middle part, you are going to be using 3, because it's here is 6. On fold, that will be 3 inches. So for center back, we are going to measure from here to here. You measure 3 inches on the waist, measure 3 inches on the hip, and then for the knee you subtract 1/2 inch, and then you get your curve. For the side back, you place the front pattern of the side on another folded fabric, and then you simply add 1/2 inch, the same way you added 1/2 inch to the front panel. Because when you add 1/2, that is, you are adding 1, okay, because it is 8. When you fold it into 2, that becomes 4 inches wide, because our fabric is on fold. So that is how we are going to cut these 8 pieces. So at the end of the day, we are going to have a width of in the front of 18 inches, while the back will be 22 inches to accommodate the bum area. So let's go to the cutting table now and then cut it. We're going to fold our fabric and then cut. I'm going to be making an 8-piece skirt. The wideness of each panel is going to be 12 inches. On fold, that will be 6. So I've already folded my fabric. This is 6 inches. I'm going to be cutting the center front first. So on this down part, measure the folding allowance, 1 inch fold allowance, and roll it. From there, measure the full length of the skirt. So this is the full length of the skirt. The skirt is going to have a band of about 1.5 inches. So we subtract the 1.5 inches, and then we need 1/2 inch to join this to the band. So I've added 1/2 inch here. So we're going to take the vertical measurements. This is the waistline. So from there, we'll mark the hip line. This is the hip line. So mark the hip line, and then mark from the waist to the knee. This is the knee line. And of course, the full length of the skirt. So I've already done my calculation. We are using the bust span, half of the bust span measurement for the center front. Okay, and We are also going to create a bolt allowance for the back. So our fabric is on fold. I'm going to use the same measurement on the hip for the waist, because we are going to be using an elastic band and a zipper. So I'll mark 2.5 inches. I've already calculated all my allowances to that. I'll mark it on the hip and on the waistline, 2.5. The bust line measurement for this customer is 7 inches, and on fold that will be 3.5. Okay, and if you fold that again, so to this 3.5, we need seam allowance to join. So by the time we add our seam allowances, that is why we are using 2.5 inches. So this 2.5, after sewing, we are going to come back to the bust span circumference, which is 3.5. So just know that my allowances have been added already. So I'm going to connect the waistline to the hip line. And then for the nail line, I'll subtract 1 inch from the hip measurement. So it depends on how curvy you want it to be. You can use 1 or 0.75. So this is 2.5. So assuming I want to use 0.75, that will be 1/3. So this nail line, 1/3. So remember, our fabric is on fold. 1/3, that will give us, by the time you open it, that will be 3.5 inches. So connect the hip to the nail. Nail and connect straight to the hem here. So we're going to cut that just off of the center front. Like something here, center front. So I'll open it up to see what it looks like. Before then, just notch the nail area. This is the nail, this is the hip. Just notch here. So if you open it up, this is what we have. So this is one of the center front. So you see 12 inches wide. Cut the second center front. So to cut the second center front, and normal for us to waste our fabric, we cut this like this. I've now turned it this way, like this. So these are the two center fronts. The hip line, the knee line. So I'll notch that point. I'll notch the hip. And the knee. So I also label this center front. I'm going to cut the side front. I'm going to fold the side front 13 inches. To cut the side front, fold the fabric. I have folded 13 inches. And fold that is 6.5. Then place the center front pattern on it like this. So because of the side seam allowance, we are going to be adding extra 1 inch to what we have. So the initial was 2.5. So this one will be 3.5. So I just add 1 inch to what we already have. So the hip line I also add 1 inch. 1 inch on the waistline, also on the knee. And connect that. Waist to hip, hip to knee, and then from this knee, you take it straight to the hem. Here's the knee. So cut it out and use it to cut the second one. So this is what it looks like. We will do our side shaping after joining all the panels together. So we use this to cut the second one back. Fold the fabric into two. Place the center front on it like this. So for the center back, I'll add 1/2 inch to the center front. So unfold, the center back is also 12 inches wide. Notch the hip, the knee, So this is center back. So use this to cut the second one. So this is side back. And use this to cut the second one. Cutting all of them. This is side back. You have 2 pieces for that. Then this is center back. You have 2, making 4. And then the center front and the side front. So we also have 4, making 8 in total. So we are going to be cutting the lining, but the lining will stop around the knee area. So we'll quickly cut that now. So we're finished cutting our lining. These are all the pieces for the lining. So to sew, we pin all the lining together. The center front, then add the side on this side and the side on this side. We pin the lining, we pin the front separately, we pin the back separately. We do same for the male fabric. We pin the front. This is what it looks like after pinning. We have pinned all of them. So this is for the back. So go ahead and sew. We sew along this pin parts with the same allowance that we have left. We do same for the front. This is the front piece after pinning. So this is the back piece of the lining. So we are going to sew with the same allowance that we have left. Sew it down. When we are finished sewing, we are going to use the lining to turn the side of this. Use the lining to turn the side of the fabric. So this is what we have after sewing the side, the back pattern. We have joined the side to the center. So we have joined the lining, and we have also joined the main fabric. So this is for one side and this is for the second side. So what we are going to do next, we place them on each other. We place the lining on the fabric, right side to right side. You can see this is the wrong side and this is the wrong side. Place it right side to right side, and then you sew with the same allowance that you have left, the ½ inch seam allowance. You sew from here, you sew here, you also sew from here to here, after which we are going to turn this out. Then I'll also repeat same for this, for the second part. I'll sew from here to here where the lining stop, and I also sew from here to here. I'll turn it, then I'll put both of them together. I'll put both of them together, and then I'll mark 1 inch zip allowance. So it is going to stop around here, around 7 inches. So I'll mark. So from here I'm going to sew. I'll sew it, I'll slant it to the side until I have ½ inch here. So I'll slant it like this, and then continue sewing this to the ends to join the back piece together, the front and This is the lining for the front. We have joined it together, and then this is the back piece. So you place it right side facing each other, and then you are going to sew the side. I'm going to use the lining to turn the side. So you sew from here to here. You do same for this side. Okay, so after that you are going to turn it out, and then we will now place the back piece. You place the back piece on the front piece and join them by the side. So this is what we have so far. After sewing the lining, so we sew it like inseam. We turn I use the lining to turn the back pattern, after which I join the sides of the fabric. Join the sides together, and then I join the lining. Can you see it? The lining is attached by the side, and I join the lining separately. So you can go ahead and iron the lining as well as the main fabric. So once you get your calculations right, you don't need to start amending and amending again. Once you sew, it's just perfect. So I'm going to be fixing the band. I'm going to be sewing in the band. Remember that the band is going to be, after folding, it's going to be 1.5 inches wide. So right now on fold, it is 1/3, and then the length, for the length, just measure around the waistline from the zipper region. Okay, if you want the band to end here, you just measure what you have from here. Just measure it round, and that will determine the length of your band. For me, the length is 42.25, and the waist here is 40. So I want it to overlap a little and put a hook at the back. So for your band, if you like, you can iron an interfacing on it. I'm going to be using the soft interfacing. I'll be using this one. I'll iron it on it. I'll fix the zip. Okay, after fixing the zip, I will now sew the band. I'm going to be adding an elastic band to the side. To determine the elastic band, to use the length of the elastic band, just place your skirt like this with you. This is the front, and then this is the back. Then you measure what you have from this dart leg, this joining here, where you join the middle, not the middle, where you join the side, where you join this side and the center. Okay, in between the side and the center, the joining there, you measure from there to the one at the back, and then divide it by 2. Measure like this. Start from here, take the tape to the back. So mine is 12, and when you divide that by 2, that will be 6 inches. So I'm going to cut out elastic 6 inches long elastic. Measure it like this and cut. So this is 6 inches, so I'll use this to cut another one. So after pinning, I will show you how to place the elastic before we sew. So this is what it looks like after sewing the zip. You sew the zip first before the bands. After that, you pin the band round. Pin it round. Make sure you have XX on one side. We are going to use a hook and eye to clip it at the end. So on your normal, after measuring around your waist, add at least 4 inches so that I don't have any shortage. I have to join here. You mark it inside. Here is the mark. So the next thing is to place the elastic on it like this, and then you pin it down. This is the mark. Then this is the other side. So stitch here on the elastic to secure it. You stitch here, you secure it down. You also stitch here. You do same for the other side. You stitch here, you stitch here. Make sure that elastic is not torn. Make sure that it's lying straight. So after you have stitched it down like that, then now sew. You sew the inside of this band first. You sew from one end to the other. Okay. Sew around to the end. So when you get to where the elastic is, if you want to sew this place, stretch it. Stretch the fabric. Stretch it like this so that it can lap very well. So that's how I'm going to sew it to the end. I'll show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you how to do this elastic at the end. So this is what it looks like when you tack it down. You need to do this. You see it, tack it down. So you can use pin to secure towards the end like this. So we'll stitch here, we'll also stitch here, and then let me show you what to do on the elastic. Where you have the elastic, you're going to sew on top. Just feel it from where the elastic started from. The elastic started from here. You feel it. You stretch it as you are sewing. It ended here. So this is what we have when we are through. This is the second side. We have closed all those parts. We have also closed up here. So we are going to be fixing the hook and the eye. We'll fix it here. So this will secure like this. Then we fold it down on the skirt. I'll show you the final look on the mannequin. So here is a final look of our skirt. 8-piece skirt, looking so lovely. This is Joydala Fashion Guide. So ensure to watch the full video, the detailed video on the calculation and the sewing process at Joydala Fashion Guide.